I'm Tien-Soon. The one wearing a coat is my business partner. He's George. So we are just going to share some of our experience from the point of developing enterprise products for software, as well as George will be sharing a bit more on how to sell enterprise products. We actually share I would say a lot of similarities in terms of our background. So George and I were ex-colleagues. We were ex-colleague from a public listed software house. He was doing sales, business development. I was doing product development. And then we moved on to another startups, Jogger Workflow, right? So I was in charge of technical consulting. He was doing BD as well, business development. So then later on we started Innov8tif, right? Right now we have been running for 3 years. We're also in the enterprise space. So pretty much that's how our relationship has been. You can call it as a partner in crime. So everywhere we go, we do it together, and I'm doing a product development, he's doing the technical, and he's doing the sales. So just a bit of personal bits. George is tweeting at cup noodles. So obviously he likes to eat. He can cook very well. So anywhere that he's around, pretty much we don't need to worry about food. He will settle. He knows where is the good food, and he knows how to cook as well. And on the other hand, he's also one of the few men, very, very few one that I knew of, who can take care of a baby from basically 24 hours. He can change diaper, he can shower the baby, he can cook for the baby, he can do everything that a lot of women cannot do as well. So I'm actually quite impressed with him.
Yeah, all my secret come out.
Myself, I'm tweeting at Tien-Soon, and I enjoy coffee. Weekend, I like to do housework. I'm quite a freak in terms of doing some housework and washing cars. So some people actually say, can I send my car for you to wash or not? The answer is no. I only wash my car and my wife's. So, enterprise software development. Before this, just a bit of recap of the background. Before I actually went into my first job doing enterprise software, I have actually created consumer product as well, way back many years ago, more than 10 years ago. So I have developed something which is like today's iProperty. I have also done a price comparison site for computer hardwares, but that was way too, sometimes I argue that it was way too early, but that's not the real problem. I started doing those things without mentor. I didn't know that doing things free is a business model. So basically what I failed last time when I was studying, trying to do something like the classifieds for the website for the properties, as well as a price comparison for computer hardwares. If I'm doing it a few years later on with proper mentorship, then I may be able to get some exit by now. But when you're still studying, it's a bit short-sighted. So I was trying to monetize at the wrong time. I was trying to monetize on the wrong customer segment, and it failed. So then when I started later on going into freelancing before graduated, so I saw some quick money, right? Doing freelancing, doing website for people. The moment you've done the job, you get paid. So it's quick money. That's why I left, kind of like given up on so-called great and prosperous consumer space. But no regret. That's the first job I went into a company that does portal, collaboration portal. So my background was very much from the software engineering. I was a programmer, then later on I was doing product management, consulting, and now doing our own business. So the key difference, there are a few key differences when we talk about consumer and enterprise software. I have summarized them into 6 points. First, targeted buyer. Buyer doesn't mean people who pay money. In consumer space, your buyers could be people who are using a product, the users, right? So I'm going to summarize all this, the discussion in half an hour in 6 key points. First is buyer. Second is requirement gathering. Third, who to please and satisfy. Very important. Fourth, system integrations. Fifth, the engineering needs. And sixth, security and auditing requirements. So the first one, buyer. when you are doing a consumer product, your users and buyers are technically the end users, individual users, right? Every one of us right here. And these consumer users are just spending on their own money. This is very important. If we do not understand this, we cannot appreciate what's the problem you are going to face when you're developing and selling enterprise products. Because when you're developing and selling enterprise products, your end buyers are not just one person. Your end buyers is a company which consists of multiple departments, multiple groups of users, and they are spending on company's money. It's not their own money. So they are held liable when you are spending someone else's money. All right? So that's getting me to the next topic, requirement gathering. If, when you're doing a consumer product, the requirements for that product, a lot of times, comes from the founder himself. If you have went for pitches before, pitching games and those kind of things, a lot of people will give advice in saying that, oh, you should start your pitch by describing your problems. You should start your pitch by describing what were your problems that you face yourself as a founder. And that's the reason why you created this product. But in enterprise space, it may not be. It is great if the founder himself is experiencing that problem. Like for example, if you may be working for a bank. So while you are working for a bank as a banker, you may also see some problems, a niche that software can help. So you are thinking for yourself, hey, if I quit the job, find a technical co-founder, develop this thing, I can directly sell to the bank. That is a very good one. But not everyone is coming from that kind of perspective. So when you are developing product for enterprises, a lot of times the requirements came from what we call subject matter experts. If the founder himself doesn't have requirements, doesn't know about the problems, then you can actually engage subject matter experts. But it's a very painful process because the ability to build doesn't mean you can sell. It's the same failure that we have went through before as well. Josh and I, we have created problems, a product that we cannot sell. So it's not a problem about creating a product. Sometimes, as long as you have a competent team, you can create a product that you want. But it may not be a product you can sell, simply because you may not index segment, you don't have the kind of connections, right? So, and you do not understand what is the real pain point. So end up, we are only developing based on our imaginations, and it's very dangerous. When we are developing for consumer space, it is still alright because consumer space, like I mentioned just now, a lot of the problems and experience come from the founder's experience. So you yourself can relate. Oh, if I'm the user. Hello. Okay. So if you yourself is the user, how would you want it? How would you want the product to be? How would you want the user experience to be? But when you're developing for testing. Okay. But when you're developing for enterprise, unless you actually came from that background and you can appreciate the problems, otherwise you have to rely on subject matter experts. And even though you can build a product, doesn't mean you can sell because you do not understand the problems as the end user himself. So then as the founders in enterprise software, a lot of times we also see people who are trying to resell a customer project into a product. It is a very good strategy, but do it cautiously because one size doesn't fit all. Some of the business founders I have seen and experienced before, whatever the team has built, he thinks this thing can be a product and resell to another customer. It is true, but it is also false at the same time. Because imagine if you are building a screwdriver, unless these screwdrivers came with a set of multiple heads and adapters to adapt with. Otherwise, it's not a product. If we have developed a screwdriver for 6mm, for example, this screwdriver can only be sold to another customer who needs 6mm. So if you are trying to resell, a lot of work are needed. I'm not to say it's impossible, but a lot of work are needed. From Innov8tif, we have also basically go through the same process. We have also productized product from customer's project, but we do not take it directly from a customer project and resell it because it's possible to work. When you are trying to customize a product for enterprise customers, a lot of time the requirements are built with that customer in mind. It is not for another customer. So you have to go through some thought processes. Understanding a problem is good, but go through thought processes so that you know which are the configurations that you have to build. The third point, who to please and satisfy. Just now in the first factor that I mentioned, it was the targeted buyer, right? So for consumer, your targeted buyer is individual user. But for enterprise, your targeted buyer is a group of users from multiple departments. So for consumer, it's very straightforward. As long as if you charge a customer $1 a month, and if the customer is happily paying the $1 a month, that's it, fine. You have already pleased the customer. But for enterprise, a lot of time, we are not just pleasing one user. We are not pleasing one department. We are pleasing multiple groups of users. For example, you could have business group. You are dealing with IT department. You have to deal with security department. You have to deal with the C-level. Everyone will give you different requirements ultimately. And sometimes, in some cases, for both consumer and enterprise, we will need to be aware of the regulations, the laws of regulation that governs that industry. For example, if you are building a product for the financial and banking sector in Malaysia, just the bank negara regulation that you need to be aware of, these are just some of those. I'm not listing all, but these are just some of those. So if your enterprise product is targeted at enterprise for the financial banking sector, you need to be aware of management of IT environment, P&M guidelines. You need to be aware of internet insurance guidelines. You need to be aware of provisions of internet banking services. You need to be aware of anti-money laundering. This is a big case in Malaysia. So technically, whatever solution that you built for the banking industry or the financial services, these guidelines will come into effect one way or another. I take an example. Not too sure if any one of you here is thinking about or already doing e-money, electronic money. Anyone? Oh, there's one at the back. So if you are doing e-money, electronic money, Anti-Money Laundering Act comes into effect. It says that this e-money, the credit that you have, let's say for example, I'm an e-money merchant. I'm trying to sell the credit in terms of e-money to my customer. All right? So this money is equivalent to 10 ringgit. I have to sell you at 10 ringgit fixed rate. Even though I'm willing to give discount, let's say I just want to pull customer. I want to do some marketing. All right? I'm saying that for this month promotion, you get 10 ringgit credit, but you only pay 9 ringgit. This is illegal. You can get into a lot of troubles from Bank Negara as well. Because the moment you do this kind of thing, it's a chance that some people could use this opportunity to launder money. All right? So if you are doing something with e-money, there are a lot of things on this act that you need to be aware of. The other one is know your customer. In banking industry, KYC is also another set of guidelines that you read through. How do you provide the features that support your customer in terms of KYC? and of course, stress testing. So just by doing something for the financial and banking sectors, these are minimal, some of the acts and regulations you need to be aware of. And of course, recently, started last year, PDPA, Personal Data Protection Act. So in the first question just now, the first factor, I will again reiterate the first factor. For enterprise, you are selling to a group of multiple users. So what does it mean? It means that you have to satisfy everyone's rice bowl. Everyone needs to eat. Everyone in the customer environment, in the enterprise customer, have to survive. Whatever you do, have to please everyone to take care of everyone's rice bowl. You have to take care of the business users' rice bowl. You have to take care of the IT department's rice bowl. You have to take care of the security department's rice bowl. You have to take care of the C-level's rice bowl, so that they don't lose their job. So how do we do that? Assuming someone came to you, David, can you help me to develop an equivalent of Dropbox? Clear, right? Requirement. Just do something like Dropbox, very easy. All right? So that's why I will tell you, do something like Dropbox, but I want to have the ability to manage user permission and access control for enterprise use cases. So you may be thinking, that's not too bad, I can do it, right? Then you start thinking about it and you start to give quotation. But guess what? The moment you're trying to sell this pitch into the company, especially if this company is in the sector of financial, telco, oil and gas. These are the three sectors that has a lot of money to spend. At the same time, they have a lot of requirements. So then the security department will comes in. Oh, you're building something like a Dropbox for the business group. I have more requirements from you. In security departments, we require that all the vendors must comply to enterprise security requirements. You must do single sign-on. You have to integrate with AD. Then you'll start questioning you on terms of file transfer encryptions, storage encryptions. Another person may come to you and say, oh, you must implement two-factor authentication. So now you have 5 requirements instead of 2. Right? Just now you have 2 requirements, now you have 5. IT department comes in. Oh, you need to implement this project. Can. This is a set of requirements you have to fulfill. You have to comply. So what do you need to comply? You must also provide features for IT and admin controls. You have to provide features for platform requirements. For example, some of the companies can be very Microsoft oriented. Some of the companies can be very IBM oriented. Some of the environment can be very open source oriented. You have to know your customer, because everyone has different flavors. If this customer has already heavily invested in Microsoft stack, and you are trying to propose MySQL, you are getting trouble for yourself. IT department will say, can I reuse my license from what I purchased before? Right? So these are the things. So in terms of platform, you have to comply. Policy management. They will come to you and say, how can I create policies for different groups of users so to ease my life? To actually lessen up IT department's job. Basically, I just create policies. The moment when someone comes in, if this person is assigned to this group, he will be provisioned to this policy. So again, you have one more requirement to fulfill. Workflow management. Wow, can this Dropbox file flowing around be routed with approval cycle notifications? Network monitoring. Can you tell me how much bandwidth consumption is? How is my CPU doing? Audit logging and reports. So from IT department, the requirements are more than your business users. Last, C-level comes in. He says, I want to have executive summary. So from simple 2 requirements, 2-liners, it becomes a huge project. And it may be something that you are not expecting to do. All right? It may be something that you have already underquoted. So you could have already been telling your friend, oh, I can drop you a Dropbox with this permission control. It will only cost you 200,000. But later on, all these requirements comes in, it becomes a 1 million, 2 million project. But guess what? When it becomes a 2 million project, a lot other people will be interested. You have a lot more competitors. Because it's a good pie. People will just want to come in. So you have to compete with people that you didn't expect before as well. But the good thing is, we just need to be aware and be ready that those are the gaps that we have to fulfill. It doesn't mean that you have to build all the features. All these features I mentioned just now, it doesn't mean that if you go into enterprise space, you have to build all those. No. You have to be a bit more resourceful. Try and go around, find some partners who are doing, let's say, for example, security requirements. They can comply. So when someone looks for two-factor authentication, it doesn't mean that you have to build that. As long as you can bring in the right partner to do that, you can fulfill requirement. Network monitoring. If you are building a Dropbox for enterprise, it doesn't mean that you have to build the network monitoring. There are plenty of products out there as well, from the open source to the proprietary. So you just need to know your ecosystem. You need to be resourceful in terms of your partners. And when you're selling to enterprise, POC is like your day-to-day meal. This is not a happy meal. Sales is very challenging nowadays because the customers are getting smarter. A lot of customers, I would say most of the enterprise customers will require proof of concept, or you won't get a deal. For consumer space, proof of concept is simple. You just have to build free trial. Customers can go online, sign up for 14 days free trial, 30 days free trials, and that's it. Go and try yourself. It's a standard product, right? But for enterprise, you are expected to do POC, proof of concept. In a way, it's like a free trial. It's free, but most of the time, it's customized. That is the one that you're killing your resources. So the moment you do a POC, proof of concept, you have to customize the use cases to fit to that targeted customer. And this is something that you need to be ready as well. By building enterprise product, there are two perspectives we can come from. One, you do it as a product principle, but you do not do implementation. Which means you only create product, but someone else do the implementation, someone else do the services. Joget Workflow is taking this route. If you email to Joget Workflow asking them, can you implement this project? They will tell you, no, we don't do it, but we will recommend partners to do it. Right? Joget Workflow, as a principal company, only sell product licenses and subscriptions. So that's another route that you can take. If you take that route, then you do not need to worry about POC, because you as a product principal only need to support your partners. You need to support partners very, very well, so that your partners can be independent, they can run the POC, they can do the selling. But if you are taking the other way around, be a principal, at the same time, be the person who implement the product, then yes, you need to have your resources ready to be able to scale to run POC. And unfortunately, POC in this region, in Southeast Asia, is always free. No one will pay for you. So for consumer space, it's very low touch in terms of marketing and selling cycle. For enterprise space, it's very high touch. System integrations. In the consumer space, integrations are very established. Most of the time, the only thing we need to integrate to are the social media. Integrate with Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And most of these APIs are very well established, well documented, very resourceful. You can even get a lot of free libraries around. People already build the templates. You just have to copy and paste and it will work. But for enterprise, it always involves system integrations, and it may even involve legacy systems. Enterprise integrations involve a wide array of technologies, from the modern, from the sexy to the ugly. If you are lucky, you can integrate with SOAP web services. That's if you are lucky. XML API, message queue, LDAP. These are more established, right? But if you are unlucky, you may end up going to your customers who require to use to do SQL query without database schema. You may be even required to do platform-specific SDK. So let's say, for example, some customer will be telling you, this system can be integrated. I have a library for that. But when you ask which library is that, they'll say it's a DLL file. So if you are building on Java, you will cry. It's not impossible, it's possible, but it's a lot of hardship, right? So these are very platform-specific SDK that they will be telling you, I have it, but you may not be able to integrate, or it's very, very tough to integrate. CSV file, Excel file, so do a lot of data massaging. Again, it's ugly integration. Fixed line messages, this is worse. Fixed line messages, it means that all the messages they'll pass to you is all allocated in prefix in terms of the bytes line. So for example, first name 6 bytes, last name 12 bytes, gender 2 bytes, and it's all fixed, you know. The moment you miss 1 byte, the whole thing gone. It's all wrong. And the worst case is cannot be integrated. You just have to get prepared for this. A lot of time, the end users, the business user may not be aware. There are a lot of things that cannot be integrated, but they were telling you, I need it to be integrated. Engineering trends and needs. When we are developing for a consumer, you can use any language you like. You can be the cool kids in town, hipster in town, going around. You can use Ruby on Rails, you can use Python, anything you like, as long as it works. Right? Unfortunately, when we are developing for enterprises, there are a lot of factors to consider, even on the programming language itself. First, in most of the industries, there are some preferences that you need to be aware of. Second, readiness of talent. Enterprises look at long term. Whatever you choose, they have to see that this chosen technology or platform or programming language has to already exist 10 years ago and will still exist 30 years later. And you need to take care of everyone's rice bowl again. So just put some example. I'm putting 2 examples here. The first example is a government sector in Malaysia. If you are developing something that is to be sold to the government in Malaysia, you need to be aware that our government is very pro open source. Because Mampu has a subdivision called OSCC. They are driving open source initiative, and all these open source, the guidelines and the guidelines and the papers are actually influenced into the tender spec as well. So if you're actually taking a look at the tender spec of the open source, of the Malaysian government tenders, most of them lean towards the open source flavors. So if you have something that is assembled from the open source technologies and libraries, it's easier to sell to government. Otherwise, it could be tougher as well. Next, banking and financial industry. The banking and financial industry is heavily influenced by the big brands because they can pay. They are heavily influenced by Silver Lake, IBM, Oracle. And what do they have in common? These are most of them Java houses. IBM, Oracle, most of the products are built on Java. So, in other words, if your proposed solution or product is also built on Java, you do not trigger the alarm. When the IT department sit in, have a meeting to evaluate technologies, it is something familiar to them. Alright? It speaks their language. But if you're trying to introduce something that is off the channel, let's say you're trying to tell them, oh, this thing runs on Ruby on Rails, you may trigger a wrong alarm. You may make your sale harder. And don't be surprised, COBOL is still used. A few big, huge insurance companies that exist now are still running on COBOL. Alright? So don't be surprised that COBOL is still being used today. Now, a lot of times when we go and sell to customers, sometimes we may want to save the customer's budget. We may be thinking from a good point, helping the customer to save some budgets. So for example, I may be saying that, hey, in my solution, I'm using MySQL and only the community edition. You do not need to pay for the subscription, it's free. Alright? Do you think this is a good approach? Before I answer the question, think again. You need to take care of everyone's price goal. When we are selling to enterprises, if it is a sector that can pay well, again, banking, telco, oil and gas, these three sectors can pay, they will not save on subscriptions. If you are trying to propose to them and say, no, this OS on Ubuntu, you can save on subscription, no need to pay to Red Hat, using MySQL, using a community edition is free again, so everything is free. But again, you trigger the wrong alarm. Because to the CTO of the company, who is being paid 30 to 40,000 a month to do the job, he is worried that he may lose his job if something happens. Because he is held liable to the decision. Right? So selling to enterprise, you have to think from the different user groups' perspective. How will the CTO perceive this proposal? If the CTO perceives this proposal as disaster, if something happens, nobody will support me, then your proposal is a very weak proposal. In terms of engineering trends, SaaS model is very trendy, right? SaaS is not a business model. SaaS is a delivery model, right? Some people say SaaS is a business model. I think it's wrong. SaaS is a delivery model. So does it mean that SaaS is also applicable to enterprise? SaaS is not applicable to everyone. I mean, that's my opinion. It is applicable in some aspect, and on the other aspect, it may not be. For example, if you're talking about banking and financial industry, these industries protect their customers' data. So they would rather own the data in their data center. They would not want you to host for them in the cloud, whatever sexy ways they will have. But there are some exceptions. If you are selling a solution that is not involving a customer data, then I think yes, you can propose SaaS. For example, corporate learning. If you are trying to sell corporate learning to the banks, to the telco, to the oil and gas industry, I think SaaS can work very well. Because corporate learning is a cost center. HR is a cost center. So if you are able to bring down the cost of the cost center by proposing a subscription, I think that's a good proposal. But if you're trying to say that, okay, I will charge you on transaction. Every transaction you submit, I'm going to charge you. That may or may not work in some of these industries because first thing, they can pay. So they don't mind to pay in CAPEX. That's where the OPEX and CAPEX comes about. OPEX is operating expenses. It is more to do with a subscription basis. So every month, every year, the company will pay you a fixed rate, for example. So that is OPEX. CAPEX is capital expenditure. One time you spend on the licenses, and every year you pay maintenance. So it depends on which industry you are targeting. If you are targeting the SME, OPEX can work very well, which means SaaS, subscription basis. It will work perfectly because they are not ready to spend upfront a huge budget. But if you are selling to industry that can pay very well, it may not be. One example is an airline. There's an airline that all of us here are very familiar with. They started with the airline ticketing system, which is charged per transaction. Because they started, they were small. So to them, it's okay to pay by transactions. But a few years later, no. They have to change their ticketing system to CAPEX model because it doesn't make sense anymore. If you are selling 1 million tickets a week, transaction doesn't make sense to this kind of company, right? Because the more they sell, the more they will pay you. So they are able to pay on CAPEX one time, upfront, a few million for the project, every year pay maintenance, rather do that. Okay, now the sixth, which is the last factor that I'm going to share with you now, is on security and auditing requirements. In network infrastructure, this diagram here, we have two application servers coming from the internet, right? Two application servers, cluster 1 and cluster 2. It is very obvious in this case that we need to put a web server or network load balancer in between of them so that you can do the load balancing, right? Obvious. What if you only have one application server? Just one. Do you need to put in a web server in front? Do you need to? Can I get some responses? Why yes? Okay, some people say for future upgrade. What else?
You want to protect the application server from a high risk.
Yeah. So if you're looking at this perspective, in enterprises, by putting a web server in between of the application server and internet, this is almost a compulsory requirement if you are trying to sell to larger enterprises. What we are doing in this case is to create a DMZ so that the web server is only acting as a reverse proxy to your application. And this DMZ, even when it is compromised, only the web server is compromised. They will isolate the web server from application server, and in extreme cases, if you are integrating with the backend, you are integrating with the database, the backend of the enterprises, all these backend systems will be isolated from DMZ as well. So, if you are trying to sell to enterprise, do consider this. It is almost a proven and is a requirement that you will have to deal with. Even though you have only one application server, you need to always put in another web server just to meet this kind of requirement. User authorization. We are talking about granular authorization. Control of the user groups. When you are developing a consumer product, we hardly need to think about this extent. But if you are building for enterprises, security and audit requirements are high and very demanding. You may even need to structure the user control by different action. For example, this user can only create record but not to edit. This user can only edit record but not to view the record. Can only edit but not to delete. Right? So you need to also cater to this kind of different granular user controls. Create, edit, view, search, delete, export, and generate reports. Just for one function. Just for one module, you have to replicate all these things. And there's also a concept of super user that some of the requirements will demand as well. We are talking about bank in Malaysia, financial sector in Malaysia. They are governed by, again, Bank Negara's policy. It is saying that super user and power user concept is actually needed if you are dealing with your e-banking. So in terms of logging, audit logging, we must be able to answer some of these questions. Who has done this action? When was this action performed? From where was this action performed? Which IP? Which host? What was the previous value before it was changed? So these are the few questions that we have to answer in terms of audit logging. And as you can see, these are the things that we do not usually do for consumer product as well. I have actually passed my time. My business partner have to share on the business for selling into enterprises. I will just pass to him now. I've taken your time for 10 minutes.
Hello. I can use it. I think he enjoyed talking to you all very much. In the beginning, he told me, no, I'll just take 20 minutes. Okay, so, okay, oops. Okay, I'm coming from the part where we say selling to enterprise. So a lot of people say, how do we sell to enterprise? So the question is, do you need to take them to expensive dinners? Do you need to take them to karaoke? Do you need to play golf to sell to enterprise? What do you all think? I don't play golf. Massage, there you go. These guys are better than me. The answer is no. You do this after you have sold to them. That's called relationship selling. Yeah, you build a relationship after you sell with them, but that doesn't mean you have to go massage. Okay, it can be on different things, sharing the same hobby, talking about family, depending what they want and what they like. All right, but how then do we engage the enterprise customer? So we need to understand enterprise to sell to enterprise. It's the same. If you're selling to consumer, you have to understand consumer. So that's the very first thing you have to understand. Who you are selling to. So it's always a barrier, right? Selling to enterprise. Those that have done it before. First, you get this look, then they will ask you, "Oh, new solution. Is this proven? Who has used this before?" Now, you may be developing the world best software that doing magic, but then they will ask you, "Wow, you have a fantastic software, but who have used this before? Can you tell me another bank that has used this?" And there you go, you're feeling, wow, I have the greatest software in the world going, and then they crush you into pieces. So these are always the questions you have to answer. And the next thing they will go, "Oh, perfect, you've got a very good software. Yeah, you have another customer using it. So how big is your company?" "Oh, 3 of you. How are you going to support my bank? I have 400 users." So these are all the questions you will get, but don't let this stop you. These are common. Expect to face this, but strategize yourself to get through this. Okay? How do you do it? Well, enterprise, you have to know them. First, you talked about growth and trend. What is the growth? What is the trend? You have to be in line. If you are still selling something that even not in their radar, not to say you cannot sell, you can. Unless you have special cases where you have special relationship or a specific user that's pushing it internally, then it's all right. But otherwise, you spend a lot of time educating them and all that. In a lot of use cases in the previous company that I worked with, it was a listed Malaysian SI company. We had, back in year 2001, we have e-learning. Can you imagine? 2001, I still go to Streamix, sign up for a 56K modem, charge me by the time I dial in, Then somebody call in, it's like, now my line got interrupted and all that. Those days, you're trying to sell e-learning, are you kidding me? So we were too early, the industry is not even ready for growth. They are not even ready for the trend, But we have the best thing in the world. We have e-learning, can you imagine that? Back in year 2000, but it's not selling. So you feel good, over here we say shocks and diri, but what do you get out of it? You don't get anything. And it's only years and years later, back in 2010, started to sell to our first bank. Can you imagine how long it took? Yeah. So you need to be in the growth, you need to be in the trend. The next thing is always solving their pain point. In business, decision is very easy. If you solve their pain point, then they are willing to invest. Then they are willing to pay you. In a simple example, we sell to Red One. Red One is an MVNO or Cellcom. They are like a telco. All right. If you sign up a postpaid line, what do? Fill in the form, right? After you fill in the form, what do? Photocopy your ID. Now that's 2 pieces of paper already. What's the third thing you need? Photocopy your current bill. You are transferring your number, NMP. Alright, so that's 3 pieces of documents. Then sometimes there are 4, sometimes there are 5, sometimes there are 6, depending on what you are doing. Do you know that just by managing all these paper is a nightmare for them? We went to their office and this guy is sitting on the carpet on the floor and he has paper all around him and is trying to sort it out and all that. Sorting is easy. Imagine you try to ask him to retrieve a customer form. He have nightmare, man. Yeah, but all those are costs. And because what happened to the form? Somebody had to do data entry, right? Then what happened? Error. 8 become 3, 6 become 8. I don't know about you guys, but nowadays my handwriting is the worst in the world. We can type fantastic, but give me a pen, I struggle, right? So these are the common problems. So when you can hit their pain point, and for them it's like, I have a whole room full of paper, now you tell me this room is free, no paper, everything in one server, don't you think they will love you? So these are the pain points that you have to hit, all right? And the next thing is very important. Like Tien-Soon said, take care of everyone's rice bowl. What it means is basically job security. I mean, why do people work in the enterprise? Good pay, good bonus, right? So if you work in a big enterprise, the bank, you get 5 to 6 months bonus. Next year, do you still want your bonus or not? Of course, right? Do you still want 5 to 6 or you want more? Yeah, but how to get more bonus? You have to be the superhero, right? What I mean is that you got to make them look good, you know? You got to give them ideas, they can bring it to their boss, and the boss will say, wow, great, you have very good idea, you know, you have this kind of foresights and all that, you know, but at the same time, you share the idea with them, but technically you can implement the idea very well. So they get very good points in their review and all by introducing new technologies that help the company to get more business and save money, but at the same time, you get the business of that company. So you need to make these guys superhero, all right? So we are all in the business of making superheroes, all right? Remember that, all right? The other point is that you want to make them fight for you. So the value must be there, you know? A lot of times, not to say that even if you are a small company, but if you have a good solution, they will fight for you. We got our first bank customer, although we are a small company, but we still got them because we were able to share our ideas, our insight, our philosophy to the customer, so much so that he is so convinced, he went all the way to procurement, and he fought for us. And we didn't even have to go through the procurement process to get into the bank. So it's also how much the person believes in you, right? So ability to share those information with them. Sometimes in a meeting, it's all about conversation also. You know, you have to go down to their level. If you are just all business, okay, done, bye-bye, go off. You know, the next guy come in where they're sharing ideas, they're making you, you know, the superhero and all that. And, you know, the perception is different. Then you think it's worth the effort. Whereas the other guy, it's not going to worth the effort. Why, you know, why do I bother? You know? So these are things that you've got to look into. All right. And as you go into the enterprise business, then, you know, a lot of time you need to work with partners, right? The bigger boys, or I'm an existing vendor, you go in all that. They will always tell you one thing: get the foot in first, right? It's very common. I think all of you have heard it before. Get the foot in first. So they will say, yeah, you got this fantastic idea, you know, $1 million project. But I say, no. We want to do it easier. Let's do a 50,000 one, get it proven to the boss. Then we can sell the 1 million to the boss. It's true, but don't overdo it. Because some of these partners, they will take this advantage, cut. Next thing you know, you're doing it for free. Don't overdo it. You can do the one foot in first strategy, but don't overdo it. Right? Oops. So how do we then address, you know, all that log and concern that the enterprise has? Well, one thing is always use a partner. That is my strategy. Why? Because partners, sometimes some of them are already existing vendors. So you must understand the enterprise procurement process. If they are existing vendor, whatever they quote, they don't have to go through the procurement check anymore. But you have to. All right? So that's a shorter way. But of course, you have to share the profits, the project revenue. And a lot of time, find partners that are big enough to address your customer need. So if they say, "Aya, so new, only 2% at your company," then never mind, you know, bring a partner. It's very common in Malaysia. We all work through multiple channel of partner. That's why we have the main con, the sub-con, and the kena con, right? Yeah, I'm trying to move from kena con to sub-con. Yeah, so get these guys, because they are big enough, all right, so they can go in. So there's no more question about, can you do the job or not? The CIO will say, I'm buying from a big Fortune 500 SI. You know, so even if they get into trouble, it's okay. But if the CIO say, yeah, I make the decision to buy from these two guys, when something happened like the ATM thing, you know, if they got hacked, what do you think is going to happen? The CIO is not going to get fired, man. He's going to get banned from the industry. Yeah, but he say, I'm really buying from NCR. These are Fortune 500 companies. There you go. All right? So it's a different perspective. All right? And the big boys have existing network. If you can do one job well with them, they can take you to the next. Yeah. When I say big boys, it doesn't mean that you have to knock on the IBM doors and all that. Of course, we also have very good program like Smart Entrepreneur Program and all that you can attach. But you can look for the, depending on the customer that you target, you can look for the mid-size SI, the medium-size SI. It all depends. Okay? When I say align to the big boys, meaning capitalize on these big boys to help you to network. We are a Samsung partner, all right? And Samsung actually brings us to customer. And when we go to customer, we also bring Samsung along. Samsung is happy because they get to sell their device. But we are happy because we get to use their brand name. Who don't know Samsung, right? So when you have Samsung talking to the customer and Innov8tif, how to spell a company name, talking to the company, it's a different perception, okay? So these are things that you have to take care of. Product-wise, like Tien-Soon say, be prepared for POC. Customer nowadays want to see ready products. You must have at least an MVP to show them. You know, vaporware doesn't work anymore. It worked in year 2000 when I started, now no more. Okay? You must have the perception that whatever you are selling is ready for production. You can't tell the customer, I need 9 months to do development for it to be ready to run. It must be a perception that this thing can be implemented fast, because business is all about time. They cannot wait. You know, if I choose your solution, you need 9 months for me to roll out to market, but this competitor say he can do it in 3 months. I'll choose that guy because why? I'm 6 months behind market if I work with you. All right? So you must have the ability to ready for production in a short period of time. Continuity ability without you, meaning if you close down, what happened? So these are things that you have to address. Of course, some customer will say, okay, we do an escrow in terms of the source code, things like that. But give them small things like ability to also change certain things on their own. Oh, I have a form wizard, you can change the fields on your own. Then for them, it's like, oh, I can do a lot of this, I can do a lot of that. In actual fact, they won't use it. They'll still come back to you, can you do it for me? And you still get paid for it. But you must have that perception that you can. Yeah, you can. Try. Oh, yeah, I can. You know, because when I try very simple. I just create a field, put my, what's the name and all that. Next thing you know, when the table comes with all sort of formula, then they will get lost, then they'll come back to you. You know, so, but you need to have the ability, because what your competitor will have. Then in the scoring sheet, you know, they will see you have 0 point, the guy have 1. All right? Next thing is basically show the ability to scale. All right? Plan your architecture for enterprise. Don't submit a too simple architecture. Okay? And what you need to do first is build your client base. Get early adopters. You can give it for free. You can beg your relative to use it, your friends to use it, whoever. But have your first client base so that at least when you go there and they ask, who has used this before, you can tell them. You know? You can, if you want to go with Maybank, find the smaller bank to adopt first. They are probably easier to talk to. You go to MSA, find the smaller guys to talk to first. They are also maybe easier to talk to. Another way is, what we do last time in TMS is we go to US, get a customer there first, then we come back and sell. The perception just changed 100 to 200%. I mean, it's quite sad, right? Here we are, we have great Malaysian product, but when we sell to the, the client, and they will say, oh, Malaysian product, can, are you sure Malaysian boleh? But we go to the US, we secure a few customers, and these are not big customers, you know. These are just pretty small to average customer, and we come back and we say, hey, these guys in California are using it. We have Harvard publication using it. Oh, guess what? It opens up all the doors for you. So this is another strategy actually, yeah? Yeah, so think about it. Even you look at like soft space, they were knocking on the local bank's door for how long? Didn't work, right? Went to Thailand, got the Thai bank involved. Now they are the superhero for all the banks in Malaysia. Right? So this is another way to look at things. Okay, time check. Okay, the next thing you need to do is, once you have sold to your first customer, you need to make sure you sustain them. Enterprise customer is like this. To sell, to get them, very long, very hard. But once you get them, keep them. How do you keep? Trust. Have their trust from day one. And how do you have their trust? Deliver what you say. Okay? Be reliable. Keep to your promises. Once you show them that you are reliable, things can work, they will come back. These are enterprise. Sometimes what we do, we go further, meaning we give you more than what we promised. End of the day, they didn't even expect, but, hey, oh, got this feature, wow, fantastic. You know? So this is how you basically give them a different customer experience, yeah, when they start to buy from you. Then you work on your karaoke and massage or whatever it takes, all right? But not necessary you have to do that. Relationship selling, okay? Now, this is just my last slide. The next thing that you then start to think is, hey, I'm selling, let's say, for example, to the bank. How many banks are there in Malaysia? Not many, handful. And now CIMB want to merge with RHB, lah, MBSB and all that. Lah. Next thing you know, Malaysia got 3 banks. Die lah, how to survive? So what do you need to do? You need to export, right? You need to start to sell overseas. You need to go to the bank in Indonesia. Wow, 200 million population. Imagine that. You know, so you need to expand. So when you want to expand, the big question is always, are you ready? It's not just about buying an Air Asia ticket, going to Jakarta and do a presentation, you know. Next thing the customer say, yeah, I'm very, very interested. Let's do a POC. Then you got to plan for 10 trips. After 10 trips, then what happened? Deployment, all that. So you must make sure that you are ready. Any country that you want to venture into. Product, whether is it in terms of your product, are your product ready for other markets? Can you support the local languages? I remember back in year 2001, I was trying to import this product called TMS Publisher to Hong Kong. You know, we built it on Cold Fusion and all that. You know, but when the first thing we go do, we got hit. The customer say there's this actually like an accelerator called Gorilla Asia wanted to buy it. You know, they wanted to close the deal already. And then next thing they asked, our servers are running on Linux. Can you run? I mean, back days Linux is like not so cool lah. Huh? It's still a new thing, open source. So the next one, oh, Cold Fusion, sorry, cannot. We can only support Windows. So all the effort of opening an office there, setting up an apartment there and all that, is wasted. I can't sell. Okay, never mind. There are still other customers. So then we go around, we sold to other local companies. But next thing you know, we got a lot of support problems. Guess what? The search doesn't work well for Chinese language. Didn't even thought about that. We sold it first. You know? So these are the things you need to think about. Are you ready? Is your product ready? Do you have enough time to go there to do POCs? You know, enterprise is not just one customer, many levels that you have to go through. There's one project that I did. I have 10 people to sign off one document. Imagine you just have to go there. How many rounds do you have to see them? All right. So budget as well. In Team is the Technopreneur Association of Malaysia. Last time they initiated this Go Global program to go to US. They get the government to also subsidize your rental of your office, subsidize your staff there and all that. 10% sign up, end up only 6% go. Why? Commitment in terms of budget. Okay. So you need to get some help if you want to go. Martrade is fantastic. There is a MDG, Market Development Grant. If I'm not wrong, in a lifetime, each company is how much? 200,000? Yeah. Every company is entitled to claim up to 200,000 to help you on your marketing activities. This includes like if you go to an exhibition fair overseas, you can claim like 5,000 bucks. That cover your tickets, that cover your hotel. Fantastic, right? So make use of it. Yeah, they have a lot of shows and events and all that. So is MDAC. Yeah, being an MSC company, you can go for a lot of that. Yeah, and I'm sure Magic is coming up with some magic, I hope. All right, yeah, to help you guys. Okay, so get some help. Have creative strategy how you want to go to the overseas market. Sometimes doesn't mean that you have to sit there all the time. Yeah, but find some creative way of doing that. But the very first few customers, I feel there's no choice. You just have to find time and secure yourself. If you're just depending on the partner to sell for you, it doesn't work. You must also show the partner that there is a market, there is a customer, then they are willing to sell for you. Okay, I have 8 seconds left. Okay, and last tips. When you have secured existing customer in Malaysia, and if they have a network out of Malaysia, get them to introduce you. It works like magic. Okay, rather than you go and knock on the door of somebody you don't know that, it will take you a very, very long time. Work out your local support plan and all that is always never easy. We have spent so much money on many markets in the previous company and all that. So, spend wisely. But nowadays, make use of technology as well. Yeah? So all those will help you guys. I don't know if we have time for Q&A. I guess not. The next speaker is there. So, but we'll be around. Friday we'll still be around. Any question you can always ask us. I hope information from me and Tien-Soon will help you guys. We hope we have also not scared you guys into selling to enterprise. Once you know it, it's not that scary. All right. So we hope all this information help. Good luck to everyone. Have a good time in Magic. Thank you.